Hi, folks, and welcome to another episode of The Franchise Entrepreneur. And the good weather is staying with us. It's fantastic. I'm loving it. Going from a couple of weeks ago when the weather was really lousy and getting a bit fed up with the lockdown. I know it's kind of eased over the last few weeks, but you can't beat a bit of good weather, can you? So today, what we're going to talk about today, right? So today I want to talk to you about reopening. Now, obviously, as the lockdown is starting to be relaxed in most areas, I'm going to be talking about the impact on the food and beverage side. So we know that non-essential retail is going to effectively be open by about the 15th of June. Now, basically, what that means is pretty much most retail shops are going to be open at that point. But food and beverage still cannot get back to its full operational level. Now, what we can do is we can do takeaway service, we can do click and collect, we can do deliveries, which we're doing now anyway. But we can now we've now got a date to work to, because it looks like we're all going to be open in pretty much, I wouldn't say full capacity. It depends on what part of food and beverage you're in, but certainly on my side of things, on quick service restaurants, i.e. the McDonald's, the KFCs, the Wok and Go's, and our other brands, that if we're not going to have sitting in, we will be pretty much open to walk-in takeaways at that point, assuming that things don't deteriorate in the meantime. So that's progress. And obviously it's, I would say it's a relief to all of us. But this is the point that I'm coming to. Obviously, pubs, etc., we don't know whether they're going to be allowed to open up at that point. And there will be obviously social distancing for all of us in terms of what we've got to put in place. Now, we're all ramping up now. You can see it on social media. Pretty much every restaurant, every outlet is now either reopening for deliveries or collections, or in some capacity is starting to open. Nando's are opening up a lot of theirs. No one's back to full capacity, and that won't happen for a while. But we're all gearing up. This is the scary part. If you thought what happened before was the scary part, that was the shock. Shock and awe, I guess what they call it in the army, don't they? Once we got past that point, we've had furlough, we've had some help from the government. Yes, of course, it's been tough. But the real tough part now, and probably the toughest part of all of this, is going to be the reopening. And it's not the physical reopening that is the issue. Oh, no, it's not that. It's the financial implications of us opening half-cocked, because none of us are going to have a full operational opening like we had, previously. We're not going to operate 100%. We can't operate 100%. Doesn't matter whether we're a quick service or whether we're a sit-down restaurant or a pub. There's going to be restrictions on us that will impact on our ability to push, to get as many customers through the doors as possible. Now, I was talking to someone in New Zealand who we're in talks with, who obviously New Zealand's way ahead of us. The restaurants are open, but they've been, obviously they've got some restrictions in place. Now, she's still saying that her sales and people that she works with are reporting sales of down between 30 and 50%. That's the terrifying part, because how long can our businesses and our restaurants, and even in quick service, which I don't think will be as bad as that, but it will certainly hit us. We're not going to go back to 100% sales comparison to last year, for instance. I'm fully expecting, and I know I've forecast and we've modelled approximately 30% reduction. If it's more than that, that's going to be really tough. 30% is tough. But we're in the stage now where we're all preparing to open. But this is the really dangerous stage, because if we open up too early and you haven't financially modelled correctly, it's worse than you thought, or worse than that, you haven't even modelled it. And you go back to thinking that, okay, going to have the same sort of staffing levels, the same sort of operation as you had before, then you're going to hit a wall very, very quickly. And remember, at that point, there's going to be very little help from the government. What's the confidence going to be like of the customers coming through the door? Certainly on the restaurant side, it's a tough one, isn't it? You're going to have waiters and waitresses walking around with PPE on. You're going to have limited covers. That's tough. On our quick service side, not as bad. I mean, I'm still not too sure how I feel about people being served by someone in a mask over the counter, but it's going to be the new way. So people are going to get used to it very, very quickly. It's the norm. But we don't rely on atmosphere as much, whereas obviously a restaurant does. You're going in to pick up your food and get out and as quickly as possible. That's what quick service is all about. Our problem is it's the turnover of how many customers that we can do, at any one time, when we're going to be restricted. Obviously, in some of our stores, the maximum that we can get in is about 3 people. Obviously one after the other, and it's, will people queue? Will they wait? The lunchtime rush is going to change. Working patterns for people, are they going to spread out their lunch breaks now? Are people going to be working from home, and therefore the high street locations are not going to be as busy, but out of town ones will be busier? None of this is clear at this point, but we are entering the very, very dangerous point. This is where businesses go out of business. What you thought was happening before and the impact that was happening before being closed was one thing. But let's face it, landlords have, on the whole, certainly with us, have been reasonable. So we've been able to push back payments. Suppliers have been reasonable because they're in the same position as us. We've had furlough pay. We've had some grants. We've not run out of cash. There's not been a cash burn on us, or not massive cash burn for us. The moment we open those doors for trade, cash burn. And our sole priority for my businesses when we open our doors is, one, to open them up in a sustainable way and a viable way. So there would be no big bang for us. We won't be opening up all of our doors on the same day. Some of them are in universities, some of them are in shopping centres, and we'll be monitoring to see what happens in those. Certainly on the universities, we won't be looking to open up until the students come back. And even that, there's going to be an impact because a lot of the overseas students may not come back. And then on the shopping centres, we're not going to be one of the first to open. We're going to look to see who else opens. We're going to look at the footfall figures and see, how the public are reacting, whether there is some confidence there, whether people are coming back into the shopping malls. And then we'll make a decision on which ones open and when they open. The stores that we've got currently operating at the moment will obviously be the first ones that open up fully. And we'll keep a close monitor on those and keep a close hold of the cost. We have to avoid cash burn. And whilst the government are still offering furlough to an extent until October, we are going to take our time on opening up the stores. We've been active all the way through this in terms of our marketing. We didn't switch our marketing off. And we've been obviously preparing for the opening. We've got our PPE, we've got all of our stores marked out, the ones that are going to open all marked out in terms of social distancing, our PPEs, we've got plastic barriers on the counters or shields, all of the sanitizers in place. We've been maintaining our stores. We've been upping that maintenance in terms of getting them ready, a quick splash of paint, some maintenance. So, we're pretty much ready. We've got some new services. We've made sure that obviously we've got the click and collect app. We've looked at little things like making sure that our Wi-Fi's are all, as they should be. So there's no connection issues. So all of those things that we've been doing, we've been preparing. And as I said, our marketing, we've kept our marketing alive, stayed in the public eye. And we're going to ramp that up. We're starting to ramp that up now and making sure that our customer base knows which stores are opening, when they're going to open, and what we've done in terms of making sure that they are clean and safe environments for them to come and visit. And also then looked at some of the offers that we can put in to try and encourage people to come back through the door. But the most important thing for all of us to concern ourselves with is that there is a lot of pent-up frustration. We want to be open, but have patience. I know, you think it's best to get open as quickly as possible. But in some cases, it really isn't. The last thing you need is to be burning through cash if you've got multiple sites. You're better off opening up one at a time, monitoring it, tweaking it, and then opening up the next one. But whilst all of that's going on, marketing those stores or restaurants that are not open, they're just as important as the one that is open, just so your customer base knows what's happening and that they're about to open, etc. So you build up some anticipation of it. But I can't stress that this is the most dangerous part and point that we're in. As Alex Ferguson says, this is squeaky bum time. The choices that you make now will determine whether you survive or not. What happened before was just a prelude to what's happening now. We could always get through that point, or most of us could get through that point because most of our costs had been switched off. Now with the reopening, these costs are going to get switched back on. So it's absolutely important that we use the period from July to October where there is still furlough support, that you just carefully and slowly, because most of the independents that are like me are not going to have big cash reserves. You need to, you're going to have to be extremely careful on what you do here, because in our financial modelling, if we're looking at 20 to 30% down, and it could be worse than that, most of the stores that we've modelled are only going to break even on that. Now, that's okay for me. If we can break even on that, then, that's, I say that's a result. It's terrible, isn't it? A break even as a result. But that's stage one. If we can get to stage one on those stores, then we can at least go, well, okay, it gives us confidence that the rest of the business will come back at some point. But even break even for us is actually, is not good news, because break even on the store is one thing, but we have a central overhead of, nearly £500,000 a year. So, that's a cash burn of 40 grand a month. That's frightening. So, at 30% down and we're at break even, well, we're not break even really. We're breaking even on our operational stores, but we've still got a central overhead of, 40 odd grand that we're burning through cash. Now, we can't do that forever. And so it's even more important that we are very conscious of what stores we open up and when we open them. The ones that we've modelled that clearly will lose money. So if we done something stupid, we opened up the university one before the students came back, which, normally we do trade through the summer. We would it would kill us in terms of cash. We would be, that 40 grand would turn into, 80 grand very, very quickly. And we wouldn't be able to survive that. It's too much of a hit over a sustained period of time. If we can etch those figures up and maybe it's not as bad as 30%, maybe it's 20%, and we can make a small profit from our operational stores at this point, we'll be in a situation where that will then contribute to our overhead. Obviously, our franchises will be contributing in terms of their royalties to us as well. So that 40,000 will soon reduce, pretty quickly, and the cash burn will reduce pretty significantly. You're playing a longer game here. Hopefully in 6 months' time, all of our stores will be back to profitability, and the cash burn over that period would not have been too bad. We've obviously put things in place in terms of preserving cash for this eventuality, but nobody likes to burn through cash. Let's face it. So that's the position that we're in. We're in better position than most, but taking a cautious opening strategy is sensible to do. Clearly, if when we do open up our stores fully and the figures are better, then we will accelerate our openings. But that gives us the flexibility to do that. On a plus side, in terms of our franchising side, we've definitely seen a lot of movement in terms of franchise inquiries starting to really pick up. Now, those went dead, absolutely dead for, over 2 months. But in the last 2 weeks, we've had a steady stream of really quite strong, good inquiries, which I anticipated. I did say right at the beginning that franchising booms in recession time. And despite the fact that we've got some restrictions on the sector, those aren't going to last forever. And the sad truth of it is that a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. when the furloughing comes to an end, or even before it comes to an end, because even the reduction on furloughing and businesses having to contribute more to it is probably going to tip quite a lot of businesses over the edge, and they will start making redundancies, or worse still, they'll just be closing down, and people won't even be getting their redundancy pay. But those that do get redundancy, or those that are anticipating being made redundant, I think those are the people who are making inquiries now because they're looking for options, and franchising is always a good option for those that have lost their jobs, have a few quid in their pocket, maybe can release some equity from their homes, because a lot of people have quite a lot of equity in their homes. Why not make it do something for you, work for you? And they're looking for good, strong franchises that they can operate themselves and take their life back into their own hands and control their own destiny. That's the sad thing about when you get made redundant, and I've been there. There's a real, once you get past the anger and the upset, it's the fact that you don't want to have your destiny controlled by anyone else. At least that was for me. I felt a bit betrayed. 12 years for a company, done my best for them, and then you get made redundant. I know I had an option to go back to work for them, but not in a role that I wanted to work in. But nevertheless, I felt very let down by them. And I determined then that there was no way I was going to allow my financial well-being be controlled by a third party. And that's what a lot of people come to the same conclusion when they're made redundant. And that's one of the reasons why franchising really does boom in recession time, because those people are looking for a safe option for themselves, or a safer option. They don't want to start a business off from scratch. They want a proven model. Franchising is exactly that. And it's also a model that the banks support in terms of providing finance for as well. So I'm actually quite buoyant and optimistic in terms of our franchise inside of our business as well, because I know that will pick up. There are positive signs already happening for that. And talking to some of my consultant colleagues and friends and connections, they're all seeing the same thing. So, we're going to up and accelerate our marketing in terms of our franchising, because we've got a lot of options in our franchising. Not just our walk and go one or our pizza one. We've got a number of other brands that we represent and offer flexibility, because some of them are high value franchises in terms of a high capital investment. Some of them are mid-range and some of them are lower range. So there's something for everyone there. So we tick a lot of boxes. So I'm actually, pretty optimistic about it. But, for those of you who don't have some of those options, but you do have maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 multiple sites or single sites, this is now the critical point. Don't allow your frustration of being closed for all of this period cloud your business head. It's very tempting to just get the place open, throw the doors open and trade, but really, really have a good look at your circumstances, the environment that you're trading in. Every location is different. And as I said, some high streets are not going to get back to where they were before. If you're in an office location, are all of those offices back? Have they now maybe changed the work effort and their strategy and maybe more, a big percentage of their workforce are working from home, and that's how they want to keep it? You could find that your environment has changed quite considerably. So there's nothing wrong in you taking a bit of time over this and assessing what is happening in the environment around you. Carry on marketing. You're not going to lose any ground to your competitors over this period. And you could learn by standing back and watching some of them, how they're operating and how it's impacting on them. Obviously, if they've got queues out of the door, then there's a real pent up, frustration from your customers and the real demand there. So then you want to get in there and open up your doors. But I think there's some real value in there and taking your time over it and watching what's happening in the environment that you once had in your operation. Don't rush back into it, because once that cash has been burnt, it's gone. And a lot of businesses, this is now the squeaky bum time. This is where the businesses accelerate in terms of going out of business. And some of it will be opening the doors out of sheer frustration and desperation. But that might not necessarily be the right decision to make. So my advice is, if you haven't already been doing it, ramp up your marketing. Make sure you're in the public eye and that they are thinking about you. Do your financial modelling on reopening. Prepare your business to open in terms of PPE and all the rest of it. And the key maintenance, make sure it's a nice environment for people to come back into. It's painted, it looks fresh, it looks clean. Make sure that your customers know all of the preparation that you've put in place in terms of it's a safe environment and what you're doing to keep it safe. And then assess what happens over this period of, June the 15th until the end of June, where the retailers have been allowed to open, because that's going to tell you a lot on whether, the footfall has picked up significantly, the confidence is starting to come back. I mean, talking personally, I can't wait to get into a shop. I'm fed up with buying stuff online. I actually want to experience going back into a retail shop and buying something. I actually went into a retail shop for the very first time over this entire lockdown, because my wife has been doing all of the shopping. She's been doing all the Tesco shopping, etc. And I haven't done any of that. And for the very first time, I went to the garden centre just the other day to buy a new barbecue. And I was very excited. And, it's funny, excited to go into the garden centre. But it just felt really weird as well, because you can't get social distancing, once you get into some of these stores. It's impossible. They do their best, but, you're going to rub shoulders with other people. And it was just weird being around other people, strangers. And I was like a kid in a sweet shop in terms of looking at barbecues and all the accessories and stuff. I came away and I spent more money than I anticipated, simply because I could. I've been allowed to go out and play. And I'm hoping that kind of attitude is going to be the same for a lot of people, that they're going to steam into the retail shops and restaurants and so on, simply because they've not been able to do it for such a long time, and they're going to appreciate it more. I certainly appreciated being in that environment, having not experienced it for such a long time. So let's hope that's the case for all of us, and that when we are allowed to go out into retail, remember, yes, be cautious, be safe, but be supportive as well to local businesses, because they've been absolutely hammered. And, I'm not going to just turn around and say, look, just stick with the independents, because it's not just independents that employ people. The big chains employ tens of thousands, millions of people, and I don't want to see them going bust either. Just spend your money, and enjoy the environment again that we've all missed, and appreciate it. You start to appreciate things that have been taken away from it, that we all took for granted. Being able to have a coffee, sit in a cafe, go and buy some clothes. Hopefully we'll all appreciate that a lot more. But go out there, support the local businesses, support independents, absolutely 100%. They need you desperately, but all retail needs you. So take the shackles off, go out there, spend your money, stay safe. And I will talk to you all on Monday for the next podcast. And don't forget, I interviewed Billy Schwer, ex-former world champion boxer, earlier this week. That podcast is going to be released probably around mid-June. I really recommend it. It's a great interview. Of course I would say that, but it's a surprising one as well. You don't have to be into boxing at all. In fact, we don't really talk a lot about boxing at all, although he's got some interesting insight into Anthony Joshua and Fury, if they were ever to meet, and what the outcome would be. That's an interesting one. But yeah, a guy who's really turned his life around and reinvented himself from a boxer to an entrepreneur, a public speaker, an author as well. So yeah, really, really interesting. tune into that in a couple of weeks. I will be plugging that quite a bit. But in the meantime, stay safe, and I will talk to you again next week.